From the Fathead Studio in Speedway, Indiana, this is The Skinny.
Oh, there you are, sweet Jesus. Come back.
The highs and lows, are just can be pretty brutal, that place. But, I think that's what is so fun about it is the challenges.
I saw Will Power smack the wall out of 4 with 10 to go. He's still going.
Dixon?
No. Connor.
Oh, Connor, yeah.
Yeah, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, Connor, and, well, you got to pick a direction, pal, and I'll stick with you.
Oh, I don't know. You lose track about halfway through.
I go to move when it's full of methanol. Both of them are full of methanol. Big bang. I turn around and the glasses are smoking. And he goes, whoa, good thing you gave me those, right?
I'm Scott Dixon.
I'm Antron Brown.
Hey, I'm Ron Capps.
I'm Connor Daly.
I'm James Hinchcliffe.
Hey, I'm Ron Capps, and this is The Skinny.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to The Skinny. We're excited here today. I'm Ken Stout. That's Rico Elmore. Typically, Michael Young is by himself behind the controls, and I would tell you that we have somebody else with him. But in this particular case, we actually have studio guests here today. This place is packed, including a special guest, Mr. Bob Dillner, the programming director at MAVTV, executive producer. He is in the house. Yes, the principal is here. We're being critiqued. He's making us toe the line, but he's always welcome for sure. Glad he's here, of course. And then this guy, I think he's a two-time and reigning NHRA funny car champ. I guess we'll talk about him since he's sitting here as well. Ron Capps, thanks, buddy.
It's good to be here. I was on here before. I do remember making fun of the name of the show from back home when JR was sitting here.
He was at a distance, so we couldn't get to him.
Yeah, and now he's confirmed it.
He's worked out a lot better.
I'm going to kick things off here because we had Matt Hagan in the studio just the other day, and let me see if I get this right. He tells us you're a certified bull reproductive organ examiner.
Oh, boy. There is video somewhere of that.
Yeah, ESPN video, I hear.
So when ESPN covered drag racing, we went to his farm and we did a supposed city boy on the farm type thing. And I literally had my arm up to here inside
the bull.
I wouldn't say, yeah. But yeah, I was, what do you call it? Not inseminating. I was... But,
no, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with any of this process.
I got to pull the footage up. We got to find it. But it was a fun day. Pretty crazy what they do. But I mean, the stuff that they have, and I'm going like this because there are utensils and things that those people do. And I spent about 4 hours doing it. And I'm not sure I'm a better person for it.
Did you have a glove on?
Oh, you wear this big condom thing on your arm. I mean, it was... I got to dig it up. It's on the internet somewhere, but it was fun.
The funny part was Matt said that you had asked him, have you done that? So you said, oh, yeah, I've done it. Yeah, no problem. And then when you get done, he's like, dude, I've never done that.
Yeah. He was just starting out to be the farming guy that everybody knows him as now. So, yeah, it was an experience for both of us, but I had a good time.
He had great things to say about you. Of course, he was a new kid on the block whenever he came in there to Schumacher, and you had been around the block a couple of times. He said, that guy took me under his wing and invited me over if I wanted to hang out in the motorhome or just have somebody to talk to. He said it was really comforting. He said, and then he progressively corrupted me.
Yeah, I was waiting to see if you were going to go there. Tommy DeLago was his crew chief at that time, and so we spent a lot of time having fun after the races were over, and we did take Matt out. I think Matt's dad kind of put a stop to it after a while because Matt's dad would come in and stay in the motorhome, and yeah, we had a couple crazy instances where Matt's dad was like, all right, you guys let my son go to bed early and not take him out tonight. So, yeah, it was a good time. But
Rod's trying to work over the competition.
Yeah,
his reaction time would be about 0.1 something, so.
Whatever we could do, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it had to be a good time, though. I mean, watching somebody come in, once you have all that experience, be able to kind of, he said mentor. I mean, you were his mentor, so to be able to guide somebody through those alligator-infested waters is pretty cool.
Yeah, I had a few when I came into Funny Car. Forrest took me under his wing. Believe it or not, he's one of my still better friends out there, even though we battled for years. Back in the day, he used to drink beer, and so when I drove Top Fuel, we would go out, and I would go out with him. And I was a rookie in NHRA, a rookie in Top Fuel, and before Don Perdome had hired me, here's this guy, the legendary John Forrest, And I mean, we would go out, and there were times I wanted to call the friends that I grew up with back home and go, you won't believe what I'm doing right now and who I'm with and where we're at. And it was just these stories. I can't tell most of them yet. And people keep telling me I need to write a book, and I probably should at a later time. But yeah, it just, so I always thought that was cool. And so I when Matt came on board, I didn't know much about him. It's just this Southern boy that was, driving pro mods and wrecking pro mods. All I saw his name, it was always wrecking a pro mod.
Blowing something up.
Yeah, when I saw him. And then I found out later, he just would drive anything. So, yeah, and he fit right in, and it was just cool. Otherwise, he kind of came in like that new kid at school where he, was a little shy and didn't want to talk to anybody. And so we opened him up a little bit.
Legendary funny car driver in the studio with us, Ron Capps. We'll have more from him. We're going to find out the comparison between two of those legends that he just spoke of, Don Prudhomme and Don Schumacher.
Downwind in the grandstands or even not, I would do the burnout, and right away, as soon as you fire the car up, it would get right into the hot headers, and it would go everywhere. And it got to the point where we had
awesome.
We had
I've never heard that.
Oh, I remember it.
The Skinny is brought to you by Toyota. Toyota, let's go places. Lucas Oil. Lucas Oil, keep that engine alive. General Tire. General Tire delivers. And Fatheads Eyewear. Fatheads Eyewear, hardcore since '04.
Welcome back to the Skinny. Ken Stout with you. Rico Elmore sitting alongside, and second on the all-time win list in NHRA Funny Car, Mr. Ron Capps is here with us as well, driving, kicking his career off for two of the biggest names in the history of the sport, the Dons, if you will, but Prudhomme, of course, Snake, and Schumacher. Comparatively, can you compare them? Were they pretty close behind closed doors? I think a lot of people, Prudhomme was Southern California cool, but when he was behind closed doors, man, that guy was vicious.
Yeah. Yeah, I was told by all the other heroes when I went to work for him, the Mongoose and Big Daddy Don Garlitz, all of them, they said, man, you came at a good time because Snake has really calmed down. And Larry Dixon, who was my teammate, had obviously worked for him doing cylinder heads and then became his driver later on, and was dating his daughter at one point, Donna. So I thought, man, and watching him, in action, getting in people's faces, or really the way he operated with crew chiefs and that intensity that I always thought that he had, but never really knew until I was in a rental car or in a trailer and saw the way he operated. You just don't know, and you hear these stories. So you can sort of compare them, but they're more not alike than anything. Snake grew up painting cars, and obviously the story is great. It was 1965, I think. He won the Nationals, the Winter Nationals, and the U.S. Nationals driving for Roland Leong, who Roland became my first real crew chief in my funny car driving for the Snake, the Copenhagen car. So to hear those stories from Roland and Mongoose and all of them about Snake and how much he'd calmed down compared to what he used to be like, it was kind of, I was like, man, if this is calmed down, I'd hate to see the old days. But Dixon would tell me, he goes, dude, you have no idea. So going to work for Don Schumacher, straight up, just a business guy, had a company, Schumacher Electric, just a different mentality and different feel at the racetrack, the way things were done. Just very business-like. Not that Snake wasn't, but it was Snake I likened to Roger Penske and, Mr. H, guys like that I got to go and be around Andretti's where, especially Penske, I would see the way he would show up at the track, with the way things he wanted, the way that things had to be perfect, the way that he wanted the car to run, but you better look good. When you showed up at the airport, he taught me how to pack clothes. If you had to go on a trip, he taught me how to pack a minimal amount to get on the jet to be able to go 5 days and not look like you're wearing the same clothes. The shoes to buy. The first time at SEMA, I had blisters on my feet. Al Unser Sr. and him had a conversation with me my rookie year about what shoes to buy at SEMA. So it was these weird conversations and the way he taught you. And Schumacher was kind of just a business guy. And not a lot of talking from Schumacher for me. He chewed a lot of drivers out that were my teammates. But I never really heard a whole lot from him, which is good and bad, I guess, at the same time. But we just kind of went about our business, and that's the two ways I kind of always looked at those two Dons.
So when you went over to Schumacher, who was your original sponsor? Was it Napa then?
Brute, actually.
Brute. Okay, that's right. That's what I thought.
And what I didn't know is Don had already hired the agency who, trying to think of Formula One, McLaren.
You're talking about Zach?
Zach. So
Yeah.
Zach had the agency here in town, and they're the ones that had Brute that needed to look for a team. And he had heard that that I was coming on board, and so they put that together with Don. What I didn't know is they hired Ed the Ace McCulloch, who was my longtime crew chief at Snakes, and he got fired by Snake. And so Ace didn't say anything to me. I had already made the move. I was going to work for Don. Didn't know until I got there. They announced a deal with the sponsor, which I thought was awesome, and then they surprised me and told me Ed the Ace McCulloch was going to be your crew chief again. So it was very cool showing up there, and that car was just a blast. We hit the ground, winning races right away, and that was for 3 years, and then Napa came on board.
So I remember you guys used to put Brute
Yeah.
in the headers.
Yeah, it was a joke. Our clutch guy sprinkled it in before warm-up one time, and the car went low ET. So then Brute had the old school Brute. It was about this tall. And so the company Brute guys brought it. And so Ed, our clutch guy, started sprinkling before warm-ups, and the fans would love it, and before a run, right before we'd fire it up.
Oh, yeah.
So fans, I mean, I never got to, because I was in the car, I would never get that feel or that smell. But, if you were downwind in the grandstands or even not, I would do the burnout, and right away, as soon as you fire the car up, it would get right into the hot headers, and it would go everywhere. And it got to the point where we had
Awesome.
we had
I've never heard that.
Oh, I remember it.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
and we did that for 3 years. I mean, we won a lot of races, and our competitors started messing with us. I remember, I think it was J.R. Todd actually at Coletta. They started trying to get on eBay and buy High Karate from back in the day. And, there was Old Spice. Guys were trying to do anything they could, because there was times where you had a wind blowing and you fired the car up, and if you put a lot in there, it would blow out of the header and blow onto the team.
Competitor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was fun for other teams for a while, then they started getting pissed off about it. So, but it was a good time.
Yeah, they were over it about like they were over Capco's bullhorn.
Yeah.
And I was glad to see that got to come back out at Brainerd. That was good. Those guys needed that. And,
Yeah.
And watching Antron win, that was great too. So a lot of things happening out there right now, and your transition to a team owner has been, was way cool. When we heard of that, and then of course we started talking about doing some stuff together, and it's been a lot of fun. So
Yeah, been a nutty year. I can't even believe where we're at right now, how fast the year has gone by. But yeah, you saw me, I think, January, and it was a crash course in everything for me. Tony Stewart was helping. We had forces calling. I had competitors calling me every day, checking on me. And there were nights that I woke up in a sweat, just like, what am I doing? How am I going to get through this? And
what a great idea.
yeah.
I know the feeling.
Yeah. But the best part was Don Perdome calling and checking, and he was making calls to Mr. H and all these other people through the holidays to help me if I needed help with anything. So, it was really, really a neat time. And I made it.
Yeah.
We got here. So it's going to be a lot of fun from here on out, too.
You talk about the stress. There was just, you couldn't sleep at nighttime. You literally wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and you think of 100 things that you have to get done now.
Yeah. Panic, a lot of panicking. But it was, getting together with Rico and Fatheads and Toyota coming on board. There were life-changing moments that happened where I almost came to tears a few times, where you just think it's amazing how I'd been told all these years driving, it's 27 years. So I've driven for two of the biggest team owners, right, that I think in NHRA. Gotten to do a lot of cool stuff, go drive the Chili Bowl, race a lot of cars, different types of race cars with really cool people. And I've always had people tell me, you're going to be a great team owner. And I just thought that was so far out there, it was never going to happen. And if it did happen, it had to be the right time and the right moment. And the way things came together were so quick and so last minute. With a lot of crazy stuff happening, and with all that going on, it was during our countdown in 2021 that all that was going on, and we ended up winning a world championship. So to script, you couldn't write a movie. You couldn't, that I'm going to end up winning a world championship and then and go right into team ownership the next year and have Toyota jump on board, having Paul Dolezal and Slugger and those guys. It just was so much coolness that happened in my life at the right moment that it was hearing all those people all those years. It kind of came back to me, man. This is
coming at you out of a fire hose.
Yeah.
And you know what? It'll be 10 years later before you know it. And you'll be like,
I hope so.
You'll be like, I remember when I started doing this, on my own. So.
Yeah.
Great stuff for sure. This guy is extremely talented. Things didn't start off so well for him, and we'll talk about that when we come back.
In his face, and I almost grabbed his helmet, and I walked away, and then I guess he snapped, and he took his helmet off and came over and just went off on me. So his helmet was off, so then I couldn't hit him.
Once again, we're back here with the Skinny, and Ron Capps is in the house with us today. A studio audience, if you will. This place is packed back behind the scenes. You can't see them all, but we're certainly glad they're here. And they're here because this guy is exciting to talk to. Couldn't have a better guest on the show. I think of you kind of like a Mike Rowe, if you will. In the landscape of drag racing, you're just one of those guys that everybody seems to get along with. Everybody loves. Your personality is non-confrontational, but when you put that helmet on, man, it's all business.
Yeah. Well, yeah, thank you for the introduction, man. I'm going to have you follow me around and introduce me in every room. That was good.
I'm affordable.
Yeah. Right as you said that, I was thinking non-confrontational. I've gotten out of the car a few times, more than a few times, and gotten head-to-head. And I did it with John. It just came to me. I was remembering, did it with John Force one time, and he had this weird look on his face. So we're helmet to helmet, and all we see is each other's eyes. And I'm yelling at him for hanging me out, staging,
right.
Qualifying.
I remember that.
It's his deal. It's what he does, and everybody knows he's going to do it. But it's qualifying, and I was in his face, and I almost grabbed his helmet, and I walked away. And then I guess he snapped, and he took his helmet off and came over and just went off on me. And then, so his helmet was off, so then I couldn't hit him, or I couldn't do anything to him. I didn't want to hurt him, but I'll never forget that. And 10 minutes later, he came over to the trailer, came up in the lounge, and we hugged it out and had a talk, and we were all good.
Well, it's high stakes. I mean, there's a lot of passion there, the emotion, the adrenaline, everything that's going on, and you guys climb out of those things at the end. I always admire you. When you become professionals like this, it's part of the task. It's what you signed up for. But when you have a broadcaster come up to you with a microphone at the end of one of those runs, it's impossible to describe to somebody that's never done it what you're feeling, what's running through you, the rate of speed it's running through you, the amount of motion you have, and then try to pull it back and give a calm answer, even though you're so pissed off you can't see sideways, and then deliver like you guys do. It's not an easy task.
Yeah, people don't realize, these NASCAR guys and IndyCar, I mean, you win a race and you cruise around on a victory lap and cars come up and rev their engine at you and you got time to unbuckle and you do all this. You got time to kind of calm down. Same with most other sports, but our deal, I mean, you're strapping in so tight you can't breathe. In fact, I take a deep breath and then it's as tight as possible so that when I exhale, if I don't do that, there's times they'll buckle me in and I don't inhale, and then I can't inhale. It's that tight. Then you're strapped into this thing and you hit the gas. It's 6 Gs, more than anything on the planet Earth, more than space shuttle pilots, more than anything but a fighter pilot. And then it's negative 9 Gs. You just went 3.8 seconds and you hit the chutes, and within 18, 20 seconds, you come around the corner and you pop out of the roof, either pissed off or happy your wind light was on. And then you're interviewed. So as soon as you get your helmet off, so we don't have that time. And so I'll never forget when I first started racing, I'd run into people at home in the grocery store or neighbors, and they would be like, is that John Force really like that in person? And, that's why his interviews back in the day that made him so famous, just out of control and nailing and calling the car names and things like that, was just your adrenaline is up. And there's guys that are really good at getting out and not. And the ones that are normally like that, I think. But I have a hard time sometimes of getting out and just, I tested with IROC before they weren't around anymore. And I'll never forget Talladega. I'm out there with Dick Trickle and whoever it was, and we're bump drafting. And I must have ADD because I'm in there thinking, I couldn't do this. I'm looking around for something the car to do. I'm on the back straightaway. And I'm like, how do they run these things? I am thinking of things. I'm going in the corner, looking at the flag, and I'm, it's a different
like
person.
That commercial with Mario Andretti was looking up in the grandstands and this girl's waving.
Yeah. So I think it takes a different breed to do each motorsport. But, when I got to do the Chili Bowl, it was the same thing. I mean, I popped out and, you come off the track and you're so out of your element. And I'll never forget. I mean, I got off and people are, "You're doing great." And I'm like, I am so over my head right now. Like, I shouldn't even be out there. But, that's what makes it cool and makes each character who they are in each, motorsport.
What year was that you ran?
Well, the first year we went down, they had the special all-star race that was the Ford sponsored it with the small motors they used to make in them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'll think about that.
Yeah,
Ecotech?
No, but they did a special race. So it was every swing and of every motor, it was basically like an IROC came in and we ran them. And they were smaller engines in these midgets. Focus series. So we ran that. Selzy and I got invited to it, and that was cool. And all that did was trigger what we wanted to do. So the next year, Lasowski was driving for Stewart back then, and so I drove that year, 05, for a team that Tony and Lasowski put together. Josh Wise, who was a rookie and a brand new kid out of California. Kenny Schrader, who was my teammate.
Not a rookie.
When I was the Skoal Bandit, he was also Skoal driver in NASCAR. So I got to know Kenny real well back before then. And, of course, Lasowski, and then Stewart was there driving. So that was 05, the first time I did the Chili Bowl. But, just great memories of that place. And, that's why I tell people it's still one of probably the best races you could see live and in person. No matter what your favorite race or racing series is, every person should see that.
It continues to grow, man.
Lucas Oil Chili Bowl. Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. 350 drivers battling for 24 spots. It's off the hook, man, for sure. Ron Capps has experienced a lot of things in his motorsports career outside of NHRA Funny Car. We'll expand on that a little bit more when we get back.
And it's funny because a lot of people don't remember that. And I even forget about it until somebody brings it up. But
I'm here for you, man.
What a great guy.
Yeah.
The Skinny is brought to you by Toyota. Toyota, let's go places. Lucas Oil. Lucas Oil, keep that engine alive. General Tire. General Tire delivers. And Fatheads Eyewear. Fatheads Eyewear, hardcore since '04.
Welcome back to The Skinny. I'm Ken Stout. Rico Elmore has joined me here on the set. Michael Young back behind the controls as well. And, of course, we have a very talented driver with us, Mr. Ron Capps. Longtime relationship between these two guys and sponsored by Fatheads over the course of time as well. One of a handful of people to have won in Top Fuel and in Funny Car, starting off with Roger Prim and Top Fuel. And I've got to ask you, when you made the switch over to Funny Car, I think if I'm not mistaken, obviously for Prudhomme, as we talked about, did you not qualify for your first race?
Yeah, the very first race, Chevrolet came back into the series. I'm driving for Don Prudhomme. You couldn't get any more high profile. And we came to Pomona at the Winter Nationals, and I DNQ'd. Didn't qualify. And it's funny because a lot of people don't remember that. And I even forget about it until somebody, brings it up. But
I'm here for you, man.
What a great guy.
Yeah. You talk about humbling. And we went Monday, we went right back to Phoenix, and we ran for 5 days. And we were having a tough time. I couldn't even get my license. The car was shaking almost every run, and it was a rough start. Things turned out all right, but yeah.
Things turned out fine, yeah, but man, I can only imagine the pressure. I mean, you step in for Prudhomme, as we talked about, so passionate about the effort, and then you don't even make the show.
Yeah. Thanks, Ken. Yeah, I'm sure everybody's got those stories, but I mean, to be the very debut of this big deal was so, again, just humbling, and you kind of put your tail between your legs, and I'm sure a lot of other drivers, were like, okay, this kid's coming in from Top Fuel, thinks he's a bad, Don Prudhomme owning it, all these big sponsors, and then proceeded to not qualify. And, we won a few more races, and he hired Roland Leong, and then I went on to win the next race. I think it was in St. Louis. We won our first Funny Car race that I'd ever won. So
I think it's important for people to understand it happens to the big guys. I mean, people see you now, uber successful, but the young people that are coming up and coming in, it's like, oh, wow, he didn't qualify for a race. Ron Capps didn't qualify for a race, and yet here you are 27 years later, very, very successful.
Well, NHRA still, there is no provisionals. I mean, every NASCAR big name guy is going to race on Sunday, right? And IndyCar, for the most part, every big name team is going to race on race day. So I always thought it was cool, especially as an underdog, that NHRA didn't have the provisional. So it always made it great. until I was a big sponsored guy. And I thought, man, it really would have been cool, because now I'm a team owner, and now I look back and I know Don Perdome probably had to give money back to the sponsor. You know, I mean,
wow.
People don't realize in contracts what happens. You know, you don't end up racing on Sunday. There's little things in contracts that could really cost somebody a lot of money. And you don't ever think it's going to happen, but it could happen at any time, knock on wood, as we speak right here. But yeah, it was a rough start.
So you're talking about Perdome. How about Skip? What's he doing nowadays?
Oh my gosh, I don't even know. He was last I saw him was at the car show in Phoenix, and Snake had just sold his Hot Wheels car. Went for pretty good money. I think he sold them together. It's about 5 years ago, and Skip was there.
Was that when they redid the wedge trucks and everything?
Yes, the ramp trucks. Yeah.
Didn't Hendrick buy them?
I think he did.
I think Hendrick bought them.
Oh, wow.
Because I saw Skip and Snake and Lynn at the airport there in Phoenix the next morning, and we all had a beer at like 9 a.m.
Legendary stuff. I had those things as a kid growing up. I mean, everybody bought them.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was great. Snake would he could have a conversation, and everybody was listening. I mean, he was the guy, and he, you know, of course, was dear friends with Bill Simpson, or everybody's buddy in racing, you know, that we lost a couple of years ago. And it was just, I saw Snake at Stewart's wedding, and he hasn't changed. He's the same guy, and maybe calmed down a little more, but he's still the same guy. Still got the stories.
Yeah, I never in a million years thought I would get text messages from Snake with little snakes. You know, he puts next to his name when he sends a text, and he texts a lot now. He was just in Hawaii, and Roland Leon got inducted into Hawaiian Hall of Fame. And you know, when I was driving for him, he didn't think the motorhome was a dumb thing to have at the track. First of all, it's not what a driver should have at the track. Hot rods or street rods, which I just had one built at the time when I was driving for him. You know, that was a waste of money to him. He just wasn't into any of that stuff. And now, guess what? He's got street rods. He's got a camper. He's been racing off road.
He's texting.
Yeah, he's texting like a lot. And you know, he's proud. He got Leah and Smoke together during the pandemic, and they ended up getting married. So he's pretty proud of that.
Walked her down the aisle.
Yeah.
Very, very cool.
It was really cool.
So you have been behind the wheel of a number of things. As you talk about Perdome desert racing, you've been a little bit of everything, and you excel in almost any type of race car. Obviously, you've done great. You know, it's your job in this funny car, but if you weren't racing a funny car, what would it be?
Man, that's a great question. I enjoy the open wheel stuff. I got into a World Outlaw car a few times. I think that would be fun to try. I didn't get to race it, but I got to run it a few times after a race was over.
Did you have any time to look at the flags and think and hang out?
Not in that thing, man. No. But that and the Chili Bowl and the Midget both reminded me the closest thing when people ask about a funny car, because you sort of sit in the same way in a funny car. You sit upright, the pedals are down. A dragster, you know, you drive a dragster, you kind of sit and you lay back a little bit more in the dragster, and you don't have to steer much. In fact, you probably easily steer with one hand, kind of have the other hand ready. But in a funny car, you can't ever do that. Never. And so people ask, what's the closest thing I've compared to it? And it would either be the Outlaw car, because I ran somebody's car after a Vegas race, and I'll just remember just being able to roll in a throttle at any given time and have the front end come up, which was pretty cool. And same thing with the Midget at the Chili Bowl when it was wet and tacky. I mean, you could at any time run the front end up all the way down the straightaway. So probably one of those two cars. Now, you know, the USAC racing so much, and I watch it all the time as much as I can when I'm home and not racing at the hotel at night. I'm always tuning in to find whatever dirt race is going on. But having, you know, the Prelude all those years, I was one of the few that got to drive it every year from the beginning. That was fun as the drivers got invited and it got bigger and bigger. So probably dirt racing, to answer your question, some type of dirt racing.
Speaking of that, what about a super late?
Sure. You know, I watched the Bombers the other day. One of those tracks I was watching, they had Bombers racing. J.R. Todd was texting me, and I was like, man, how fun it would be to get in one of those things and have a bunch of our friends from different race series go out in those Bombers and just run them.
I've not heard that term for so many years, and that's what I grew up, Sunshine Speedway, there in Clearwater.
Oh, yeah.
We used to
didn't
go
have
watch the Bombers.
I never saw them growing up in California. I didn't know what they were, and I was like, oh, there's my new fun. I got to try that.
They were awesome.
Well, but the problem is every one of you, us, us would be cheating them up. Be doping tires, wrong engines, and
We were kids, man. We didn't know. It was all good, man. All we knew is they were just going at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great fun for sure. Ron Capps in the studio with us. We'll have more from him when we return. Trophy that you're missing?
Yeah, Indianapolis. Well,
hey, he's bringing up all the highlights for you.
Be careful
today.
when you walk in the studio. Start kicking, man. We're having a great time here in Speedway, Indiana. We're just down the road from that place called Indianapolis Motor Speedway. But if you go west a little bit, there's this place called the Drag Strip that everybody goes to. And it's the largest drag race of the year called the U.S. Nationals that Ron Capps is in town for. He's certainly looking forward to that one. As we talk about you being second on the all-time win list, two-time champion, is there one trophy that you're missing?
yeah, Indianapolis. Well,
Hey, he's bringing up all the highlights for
Be
you.
careful
today.
when you walk in the studio. Start kicking, man.
I've won at the track many times, and I've won all-star races. We won the Big Butt Shootout. I've won makeup races. I won the COVID race that we had at the at Indianapolis track, but never won the U.S. Nationals on Monday. And I'm one of the few that has won at every track on the NHRA tour. I'm not sure how many there are, but that's a pretty cool thing to be able to do, right?
Absolutely.
So that just tells you all the talented people I've been around in my career. But it's always eluded me. That Monday, U.S. Nationals, and I've been close. We almost won it last year, and Tim Wilkerson went like this and threw a tune-up in it, and he'll tell you the same thing, and we call it getting wilked because he absolutely shocked us, shocked himself, shocked everybody in the grandstands, and whooped us in the final round. And I thought that was one of the few times I thought we got this. We had lane choice. We were going in. There was no way he was going down that lane, and that's drag racing for you. He completely took it away from us.
You know, we talked about it with Matt Hagan. Obviously, Tony Stewart coming in as a new team owner. Hagan comes in here second in the points, a handful of wins. He's going to have a shot at this championship. You've already clinched. You come in here third in the points. As a new team owner of your own, you have a shot at this championship as well. You've not skipped a beat, man. I mean, we talked about how difficult this is for you to start what you've done in 2022, but you're doing awesome.
Yeah, and it was quick. We had to make a lot of big decisions quickly. We announced it at PRI here in Indy, and I had to make a lot of really brash, crazy decisions before the season started because unlike next year where it's going to start, NHRA season will start in Gainesville in March instead of the Winter Nationals in L.A., and we'll have more room. I had to get everything together and have a team. I already had Dean Antonelli, Guido, and John Medler, and the same team we won the championship last year with. But we decided to stay with DSR parts, the same cars, and I made a deal with Don Schumacher to be able to lease back the same stuff that we ran the year before. So that, I think, was crucial to us hitting the ground running because the very first race, we were number one qualifier, and then we almost won the race. We came about this close from winning low qualifier and sweeping the whole race. And Robert Height ended up beating us in the final, but I thought, wow, what a great start.
Oh, my goodness.
And I never thought that we would be that good that quick, with a little bit of growing pains. But and it's been great. We ended up winning in Vegas, and then we gave Toyota the Supra body its first win in Bristol. So a lot of cool things that's gone on besides just being a team owner and trying to block out the team owner stuff when I get in the car has been probably the biggest thing. But I think I've grown a lot this season and trying to do that. And it's been a work in progress at times. But I couldn't ask for a better start. And we're already gearing up for next year as we speak on what we're going to do with, where we're going to be and what teams and what parts and all that stuff.
Does Guido have the box or does John have the box?
Guido, yeah.
Oh,
no, John.
John has the
shutout, yeah.
John has the box because Guido is like, shut up. He's like trying to
explain what that is for the fans that are watching that aren't familiar with it.
And Ron could probably, what they have, the shut off on the line, so.
Yeah, there's many times we'll make a run, and it's just a box with a button. And if it puts a cylinder out and I'm ahead on race day, they can save me from having to leg that thing down there and possibly blow it up. But it's an electronic box that they can hit the button at any given time and shut my car off. And it's a good thing. There's sometimes not a good thing. But in qualifying, if you're already qualified well, and I don't quite know, there's some weird flames going out the side because I can't see them, they can certainly shut it off and save parts. So for rookies and new guys in funny cars and girls, it's been really good. It saves oil down, saves a lot of cleanup time.
How long has that been around?
Not long.
I think it's been around a long time, just not in this sport. From my early days of doing Monster Jam, they always had one of those remotes to shut monster trucks off in case a driver was to knock himself out or just get out of control. They'd shut that truck off. And I'm wondering if it's that technology that worked its way in.
Dave Leahy, who comes up with a lot of cool stuff like that, the automatic shut-off that's past the finish line, if fans may not know, when we go past a certain point, there is a beam shot across each lane, and we have a transmitter on each car. And if the car blows up and I'm unconscious, that beam, if I haven't shut the fuel off on my own at that point or gotten my parachutes out, that beam will automatically put the chutes out and shut my fuel off.
Oh, wow.
And it saved me a couple times where I've had explosions and I was unconscious. So that was a good thing. And then later on, and Dave Leahy did come up with that. He works for Jim Head. And so later on he came up. But that's a good question. I want to ask him if it did come off that technology, because as soon as you said that, I remembered seeing and hearing about the monster trucks. And
and if you take a look at that, typically there's two monster trucks out there, so they have a left and right lane. So they would have distinguishing lights. I want to say red or green or something like that. But both drivers would have to put their hands out, and they would shut the truck off before they launched them to make sure that they were functioning. Of course, every single pairing, whenever they went to do that. So I'm kind of curious too. But boy, I had no idea they had something that I knew that they had something that would shut you guys down if you went too far, but I had no idea it would actually deploy the chutes as well. That's incredible.
It's kind of like they shut you down at the go-kart track.
Yeah, right.
It's kind of the same concept.
I've never had that happen to me.
Yeah, sure you haven't.
Ron Capps in the studio. We have one more segment. Have you ever been for a ride in a funny car? Well, we're going to have him take us for a trip down the quarter mile whenever we get back.
Where you're looking, pinpoint spot at the top end of the track is the only clear thing. Everything else is a complete blur, like you're going into hyperspace.
The Skinny is brought to you by General Tire. General Tire delivers. Toyota. Toyota. Let's go places. Lucas Oil. Lucas Oil. Keep that engine alive. And Fatheads Eyewear. Fatheads Eyewear. Hardcore since '04.
Welcome back to the Skinny. We have Ron Capps in the studio with us. Did you realize he was a professional racquetball player?
Oh.
Are you serious? How far up the ladder did you go, man?
Not that far, but I played a lot of tournaments, played for money.
I heard pro. Is there? I didn't know if there was pro.
I won money, so I was
there you go.
Considered, I guess, a pro.
You pay taxes on that?
No, I was just going to say, I don't think I ever got 1099 on some of that. But yeah, I used to teach it. When I was going to college up in the Bay Area, I taught it, and I played tournaments. We'd drive all over the place and play tournaments. I had a partner at the time who ended up meeting or introducing my wife to me, my now wife, and he did work with her, and he was a southpaw wrestler from Missouri, which unbelievable power, and to have a right and a lefty in doubles was a cool thing, right? It's both forehands, and so throughout college, it got me through college, giving lessons and playing tournaments.
Wow.
So,
Did you hustle people?
There were times, yeah, of course. Yeah.
So did John Force know that when you got up in his face that one time that you were a former Greco-Roman wrestler?
I don't know.
Oh, that could have been great. Pulls a suplex on him. Tips him over.
Yeah.
That's all upper body throws, right?
Yeah.
So that could have been interesting.
Yeah, it was great growing up there. My dad was into judo, and my brother and I both wrestled and freestyle and Greco in the off season from when we were normally wrestling. So yeah, it was a great sport to grow up in. Great sport.
Yeah, maybe they ought to think again at the top end.
We'll let a secret out here.
I have an alter ego. Yeah.
Okay, man, I want you to give us a ride here. Walk us through, for the fans that aren't familiar with it, this should be a lot of fun. But the helmet's on. They've put you in the car, pulled the belts down. They're starting up the car. Walk us through your system, your process to get this thing staged all the way through. Let's just call it a good run here without any funny business in the middle. Give us a ride.
Well, first you got to pray that you're going to make it through that run. No, it takes a few guys to start these cars. So, there's a lot of looking around at each other and nodding before they start it. But it's a unique thing because these are 12,000 horsepower engines. And when you look at one cylinder making more than a NASCAR Cup engine. I mean, it's a lot of raw power. When I drove Top Fuel, it's behind you. So you have guys just kind of point at you. They start it. You know it started. You can hear it, not as much as a funny car. But with a funny car, you have everything in front of you, and that's what I love. It's the first time I got into a funny car. So they drop the body on. You get to do that fun burnout, which used to be funner, but now we are told to do shorter burnouts to keep the tire temperatures down. But, you know, everything beyond that, you get back, they lift the body up, they check everything, they drop it down, and as this progresses, your heart rate goes up more and more because you know pretty soon you're going to be rolling up to that first bulb and that first beam. And once you're pre-staged, there's really only a couple things. And this is where issues at the top end of the track that we've gotten face-to-face with other drivers. There's not a lot you do. You roll in pre-stage. Once the other driver rolls in pre-stages, you basically, all you have to do is pull your fuel pump on. But prior to that, shut your helmet visor, turn your air on, and that's about it. So when guys hang another driver out, it's not like, and you still get drivers, well, I was having an issue here, I had to do this or that. Baloney.
You do it all the time.
Listen, yeah, and you do it all the time on top of it.
Right.
So really, you're sitting there at an idle, and this thing's popping and banging, and I always try to think of it, it's like a great rock and roll song. This thing's like a drum coming in at the beginning of a really good song, you know, and you're up there, and it's and pre-stage, and then you pull the pump on, both drivers roll in, and it's and then the flash of amber. And for fans at home, we don't wait for that green light. As soon as you see that flash of those 3 or 4 ambers, you mash the gas as quick and as hard as you can, and you have a handbrake, and you have to let go of that. And the really good drivers through their career are the ones that can do that simultaneously, and not the gas first and then the brake, and not the brake first and then the gas. I mean, you have to be precise. So a crew chief, he'll spread that sheet open and look at that data afterwards, and he can tell by fractions of a second if you did one before the other, and it will mess the tune-up up, believe it or not. But when you mash the gas and you let go of the brake, it is like the biggest guitar coming in. It's like Eddie Van Halen on 11, and it's just, then it's on. And the RPMs flash up from 25 to $3,000 at idle to 8,300 in a heartbeat. I mean, bam, and it's away you go. And it's believe it or not, the G-forces aren't the most when you hit the gas, which you would think. It's actually when the clutch starts coming in about a second and a half into the run. So it goes through about a second, it rattles the tires about a second and a half, and then the clutch comes in. And when it comes in, it throws you back another half a G or another G, up to 6 Gs. And you're trying to hang on. And the craziest thing I tell people, and it still happens today, but when I was a rookie, is it's like the original Battlestar Galactica or Star Wars movies when they would go hyperspace and all those lines would, you know, and it was all make-believe, but it's exactly where you're looking, pinpoint spot at the top end of the track is the only clear thing. Everything else is a complete blur, like you're going into hyperspace. And the faster you go and the quicker the car starts moving, the more G-forces you feel in your butt, the quieter the car gets, because you're all of a sudden you're going quicker away from the noise when it comes out of the headers. So the flames start out your window at night, and then they just slowly come back. And the quicker you go, it completely makes your brain freak out the first few times, because you're expecting to go faster, clutch is throwing you back, everything's intensified, and yet it gets quieter. So it's backwards. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, the finish line comes so fast, you got to be ready to get the parachutes out. And you do that probably 2 football fields before the finish line. So at the same time, that's on a great run when nothing goes wrong. Now you take it a step and you have one cylinder out and you know it's out and it's race day. You got to pedal it. You got to catch it. You know something's wrong. It's the final round and you know it's going to blow up and you're gritting your teeth and you know you don't see the nose of the car next to you. Those are those moments where you got to make decisions on what do I do? Do I leg it out? Do I risk blowing it up? Is the trophy and the win enough to be worth it when it does blow up? But when everything goes right, it's the most amazing song in the world.
I had a quick question just to finish this. What's the negative G's like? When you shut that down, you go from 6 G's to what, -9. What is that sensation like?
It's crazy. And really, you joked about my neck and the way I turn. 27 years of driving a funny car, but most of it is pre-Hans and pre-head and neck devices. Before Earnhardt's wreck, you look at old videos of Doug Herbert, they had in-cars where he would hit the chutes and his head would go forward and stretch, and you'd see it in these in-car videos. And we never knew that's what was happening to a lot of us until we saw a lot of that. And that's, I'm sure, what tore all the ligaments and all this, the damage to my spine and my upper neck. But now that we have the head and neck devices, everything's tight. But yeah, Michael, it is crazy to go from those positive G's to the negative G's, and then come around the corner and jump out and supposed to do an interview and get all your sponsors' names and talk like you're like
everything's
nothing happened.
fine.
Yeah.
So take us through this. The fire at Bristol last year, when it got through the titanium plate and in there at you, right?
Yeah, that's happened a few times where it was like a torch. It was burning me, and those are decisions you got to make. So, and here's the thing: fans have to understand, and I've said this to my team owners, Don Prudhomme, who's driven and won, Don Schumacher, who's driven and won, funny cars, both of them. There are these little windows in the firewall, and you see them out of the corner of your eye. When they're orange and not clear out of the corner of your eye, there's something going wrong in that engine compartment, and all you know is that's lit up, and it's on fire on the other side. But if you're trying to win a race, it's on fire, and you don't see the other person out there, you've got to leg it, and you just kind of try to duck and grit your teeth because it's coming. So those are those moments that you like that, and there's going to be fires, as a funny car guy, you're going to have them. It's not if, it's just how many in your career and how bad are some of them going to be. And I've had some pretty good ones where they burn you pretty bad. And but that's part of the allure, and that's part of what made me as a kid want to be a funny car driver, right?
Was getting burnt.
Well,
I'm
maybe,
kidding. I'm kidding.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, seeing
Surviving
seeing
those
Raymond Beadle
explosions,
jump
yeah.
out on fire, and the snake, and guys, upside down and rolling and jump out of a burning car. You're like, I want to do that. You know what I mean? Like that's the
Did you ever
coolest
think
thing.
of like stunt car driving? I mean,
Well,
that's
my
kind
brother
of a
does
thing.
that now, yeah. And so, yeah, of course, that'd be something cool, and I'm envious of what he gets to do. But yeah, it's listen, when all the other kids want to be baseball players and astronauts, I wanted to be Don Prudhomme from the get-go. And so, that's always carried over. So it's
Awesome.
the best job in the world.
Yeah.
Here's what I thought this morning. Listen to this. And I was driving to a media thing, and I thought to myself, how many jobs would you say, if you won the lottery, would you change and quit immediately and put your notice in to do whatever you're going to do, go live on an island or something? I have a job where no matter what, if I won the lottery tonight, I wouldn't quit doing what I do for a living.
A lot of extra parts.
I was going to say, top fuel car coming to the team.
Yeah, I would definitely probably have nicer trailers, but not many people could say that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Great stuff. And it's great to have Ron Capps with us, of course, the driver of the Toyota Supra, Napa Auto Parts sponsored NHRA funny car. He'll be digging for his first U.S. Nationals win here in 2022 as a new team owner as well. We certainly appreciate him coming by. And now you have a little bit of the skinny on Mr. Ron Capps. See you next time.